Hello, everyone. Ouch. That was not as fun as our other shows. I mean, I'm glad to or the other games we were reviewing rather, but I'm glad we I don't know, are in this position where a game in December can sting so much and it can feel so meaningful. But wow, that one feels like it slipped right through their fingers. Colin, before we get into it all, oh, by the way, I'm joined by the amazing Colum from Cork. I just know you so well. I was getting ready to jump right into it. Colum, I got to give this guy his introduction. He does the Irish NFL show, the Dublin to Denver podcast. Uh, is just one of the brightest football minds. I love this man. Uh, he was very gracious with me when I almost horrifically embarrassed myself when we first met in the Broncos press box. So I'm always grateful for his graciousness there. And yeah, glad to finally have you on the show, Colum. It's been long, long, long overdue. What was your instant reaction to that game?
Ultimately enormous frustration, Zach, and thanks for having me on. But like, you're kind of stunned because of the way in which the game went. Like, it seemed we started off so poorly, and then there were moments in the third quarter and the fourth quarter when you thought, oh, well, that's it. The team drags themselves into it. It cuts to that clip on the sideline of the guys kind of blessing themselves right at the end. You think, okay, we're here, and ultimately it kind of, with the, I suppose, the way in which it played out, I think both in terms of perhaps the play calling, but the way in which the plays themselves developed, it just left a little bit of a frustrating taste in the mouth, that we could have gone in there and got the victory. But instead, that is not to be the case, and we now sit what, 6-6, and I suppose hoping that the Titans can do us a favor. But you'd have to say, Zach, that there were things that we saw, I suppose, in this game that would concern you a little bit for the run in, though the result in the Chargers Patriots game would lead you to believe that we should be capable of winning those three games.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, those three look like very winnable. It's not over yet. You know, I know the odds plummet from like 60% with a win to 16% or so with a loss. Glad to see Z in the stream. Shout her out really quick. Um, so it's incredibly damaging to their playoff hopes. I think it was the single most impactful game um, of this week's slate in terms of playoff chances and all that. So losing absolutely hurts. But if they win out from here, they're 11-6. They're absolutely 1,000% in the playoffs. They're probably the 5 seed. Um, even with a loss, uh, they have a good chance to go 10-7. And I think 10-7 is going to, like, even with the tiebreakers, and I know they're not very favorable for the team, I think 10-7 is enough to get it done. Things now. You mentioned they've got the two Chargers games, the Patriots game, the Raiders game. All of those seem extremely winnable. The Lions game is tough, and winning 4 of 5 is never easy in the NFL, no matter who the opponents. But they still got a shot in this. I want to talk about kind of what you highlighted there. Uh, just the harbor here, I guess. Some of the flaws that revealed themselves in this game, but I first got to talk about. I mean, what a crazy game! First, yeah, I don't know still right now as we're talking who my stock ups gonna be. I finally landed on a stock down just as Colin was jumping in the call here. Uh, but it's so tough to land on anyone because, like, even Russ, I thought Russ had some awesome moments, and I thought he had some absolutely dreadful moments, and I thought the offensive line had some good moments and some dreadful moments, and like Singleton had some really dreadful moments and even had a couple of really awesome moments. PJ Locke had a few of both. Jaquan McMillian had a few of both. uh, so it was just a really up and down game from everyone. It felt like every time the Broncos were out of the game, they made some incredible play or a series of incredible plays to get themselves back in it. And it felt like every time they got back in it, they would make a heartbreaking disaster mistake that would put them on life support yet again. Um, I can't remember a game that stressful since like the Tim Tebow era, since like the cardiac Broncos where they had the Brandon Stokely tip to Brandon Marshall against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, Colum, where does that rank for you among like crazy Broncos games in the last decade or so? That felt like an all timer for me.
Yeah, there have definitely been moments this season, Zach, where it really felt like the Tebow years. Like we were kind of um, living, on kind of I suppose, like a hope and a prayer, if we're to reference Tebow. And one of the things that came to mind was I had the good fortune during the off season to speak to Jim Trotter. And he told me a story about how he covered the Broncos for some of that season because the Tebow story was so big. And he said he went in after, obviously, the Broncos had gone in on this incredible run. And he went in after they'd won, I think, maybe 4 or 5 games on the bounce. And he said that the locker room, he was kind of surprised because it wasn't as energetic as he expected. And he got talking to Champ, who was obviously very experienced. And he said, like, why are you guys not up? You've won like 5 on the bounce. And Champ said, man, it's hard to win this way. And I thought that was interesting that obviously they enjoy winning, but it was tough to win like that because it meant that you had to be on top of your game, on top of every single play. You could not take a snap off. And for Champ Bailey, who is, one of the greats to play the cornerback position, to be saying that was really interesting. And that's what it's felt like for the Broncos, right? You can't take a snap off. Tonight, my time, daytime, stateside, the Broncos, it felt like, unfortunately, there were some snaps where players just maybe weren't dialed in or made some mistakes or made poor decisions. And ultimately that, when you're playing football, when you're walking the tightrope like this team has to do, because of the talent and maybe some of the holes on the roster, that's where we are. So I think the Tebow years is a good comparison, though obviously the roster composition is somewhat different.
Yeah, the Tebow comp kept coming into mind as they were coming back into this one. I think if they somehow found a way to win it, it would have been, I mean, a kismet or comparison. Man, it's crazy. I think D Bronx has a good point here. If the Broncos were -3 in turnovers in any of their last 5 games, they probably get blown out. I think that's a good point. I think you saw a little, maybe not any of their 3. I think the Browns one was fairly confident, and the Chiefs one too. But absolutely, those were huge, especially in close wins against Minnesota, close win against Buffalo. And it did feel like roles reversed a little bit here, where the game was so close, and it's hard to not at the end of things look at -3 turnover differential and go, man, that's the deciding factor. And this is what we've been talking about for a while. I'm sure you've been talking about it on your show. We've been talking about it here. National media has been talking about it. It's going to regress at some point. So much of turnovers and takeaways, like some of it, yes, is player impacted. A lot of it is luck, though. And they had incredible luck for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. And this was a comeback to earth game. But Colum, give me your stock down. Let's start there.
Ooh, I think probably, unfortunately, Zach, it's Alex Singleton, just because it's been coming over the past few weeks. There was a missed tackle last week, and look, the guy is a trier, and he makes a huge number of tackles, but when you get almost goaded into it, and I know Will Keys put the clip up, but Stroud goaded him because quarterbacks are a protected species. We know that, and you could see the smile on Stroud's face because he knew what the refs were going to do. You got a home crowd, they're up for it. It's a huge game for them. I think you got to be clever in the way in which you go about playing. Like, it's so key, and that play cost us, and ultimately on the scoreboard it cost us. And look, we're sitting here, we could have been kicking a field goal to win it potentially, and that that to me is unfortunately, one of the asterisks that has to be put alongside Alex Singleton's performance.
Yeah, Singleton's my pick, or was going to be my pick. I'll let you absolutely have him because, man, hey, he's been a problem generally, but that was a really, really bad moment right there. Yes, Stroud is not innocent in the exchange. Absolutely, he got into it. There's the headbutt and all that. But it's also very
Zach,
obvious.
can I say, like, he shouldn't be. Of course he's not innocent, right? You want your players to play smart. I mean, go back in time, right? Go back to Shannon Sharp calling out Derek Thomas's girlfriend's phone number on the line in order to get Derek Thomas to commit penalties. Was Shannon innocent in that? Absolutely not. But you're trying to win a football game. You got to be smart. You got to go about it in interesting ways. So yeah, Stroud absolutely was not innocent. He goaded him into it, and he won it for them.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going with it. It's like Stroud involved himself, and I've seen a lot of Broncos fans going, well, he headbutted. How's not the flag on Stroud? It's very obvious what Singleton was doing. If anyone's watched the in-season Hard Knocks, and in that first episode, they're getting ready to play the Raiders, and they're preparing, and they have, I don't remember the Dolphins player now, but they have him playing the role of Max Crosby during practice that week, and they're telling him, interfere with Tua kind of after the snap. Try and get some late stuff. Just try and get in his head a little bit because that's what Max Crosby likes to do, and we want to emulate him. Max Crosby's not the only NFL player that does that, and that's 1,000% what Singleton was going on there. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but he saw a moment to try and get a little late shove after the whistle, and he went for it. He very obviously knew what he was doing on that play. He initiated whatever mental gamesmanship went on there. And to your point, CJ Stroud completely outfoxed him in that moment. And like, it's absolutely true when it's a quarterback, but any players, if you see players get into it, and one player initiates the altercation and then finishes the altercation, is the last one in that like shoving mass to re-engage, they get penalized 9 times out of 10. Now you're saying the quarterback's the opponent in that situation, it's 10 times out of 10. It was just, and he's paid to be like a captain of this defense, a middle linebacker, and he's going to be the middle linebacker going forward as Josie Jewell's contract comes up, and they're financially committed to Singleton. Horribly dumb decision. Cost his team 4 points, and those 4 points loom so large. They score that touchdown late to make it 17-22, or I guess I should say to make it 16-22. If they have those 4 points, it's 20-22, and they're making a decision on a 2-point conversion to potentially tie the game. And maybe they don't get it, but they would have had an additional bite of the apple. Singleton took that away from them, and in such a close game, that's a huge stock down. And again, it's not just that one moment. He's been hurting them between the snap of the ball and the whistle already this season. He's one of the most targeted linebackers, allowing completions at one of the highest rate in the league. So getting targeted a lot, allowing a lot of completions. That's a horrible combo. And he's missing tackles at an incredibly high rate as well. So he's been a sieve in the run game. I'm annoyed with it, Colum.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can get away with certain things, but that type of stuff, and as you said, this isn't just a 1 week thing, okay? Because I think people will be more forgiving if it is just a 1 week thing, but it wasn't the case. But you can't put it all on Alex Singleton either, because I think there's plenty of blame to go around on today's performance, and that can be both on the defense and the offense. I mean, we're back down to scoring 17 points. The offense really struggled at times. The run game, is is a real issue. When only your QB is getting above 4 yards per carry, that's a concern, Zach, definitely. And on the defense, like it wasn't only Singleton. Now, one of the other pieces that probably we won't get clarity on until tomorrow. Obviously, we saw Patrick Surtain come back out there, but we've sometimes seen players come back out onto the field only during the week. Obviously, it gets flagged that there is a longer term injury there. I hope that isn't the case for Pat Surtain, but that would be a concern.
Yeah, agreed. We'll have to see what happens there. Man, it's I really hope Pat Surtain's at 100%, because if not, that changes things. I think that's a huge part of the reason why Nico Collins got so loose. It was man, I'm in shock. I can't believe it. I haven't felt this way about a Broncos game in a long time, and it sucks, but I'm also kind of glad for it, because it means it's not the misery it's been for so long. Singleton was going to be my stock down. Let me come up with another one quick.
While you're thinking on that, Zach, one thing that just jumped out at me, I suppose, on this that I want to highlight, because it's a hobby horse of mine. There were an awful lot of people over the past few years, who said, "Oh, you can't win with a rookie head coach, or you can't win with a rookie QB, and you certainly can't win with a rookie head coach and a rookie QB." Well, my goodness, the Texans, who were the laughing stock of the league for a number of years, and only ended up not picking number one last year because they leaked the Lovey news. They look absolutely wonderful under their rookie head coach and with their rookie QB. And I think that's just an interesting piece to note.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's a huge turnaround what we've seen from the Texans, and I think that'll lead me into my other one here. I'm gonna put my neck out there. I was like, do I want to be safe and just say it's the offense stock down? I'm gonna put my neck out there. I'm going for it. Russell Wilson stock down. I don't think it was the worst performance. Like I said, I think there were some really awesome plays. The little wiggle shimmy scramble on the final drive to somehow convert that fourth down was insane. That was awesome. He made some big plays today, and I don't want to act like he didn't. The throw to Sutton, the touchdown throw, awesome. The two throws on the first drive to Sutton that Sutton couldn't come down with, one of which was definitely a drop. Those hurt. So it's not just, again, as I've said on the show before, it's not a black or a white situation. It's a gray situation. But I do think Russ's stock absolutely came down today. You're talking about a guy with the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL entering today, and he threw 3 interceptions. And they weren't great interceptions either, especially that last one that kills the game. You throw the ball away. I mean, great job to avoid the sack. That final play really captured it up so well, like makes an incredible play to dodge the sack and then throws it right to a defender who absolutely has the practice squad pass catcher completely smothered. I think you saw what Russell Wilson is today. And I think if the Broncos want to get away from what they've been for 6-7 years and just be decent for a while, Russell Wilson can do that for them. And maybe they set the foundation of this Sean Payton regime, and get ready to compete at a higher level moving forward. But there's going to be games where you play good quarterbacks that are playing really good football. And I know they played Josh Allen. I know they played Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes did not play great in that game. And Josh Allen did not play great in that game. CJ Stroud was even, like, by his standards, maybe not great in this one, but in the NFL, you need your quarterback to make you some plays sometimes, or you have to be the 2015 Broncos and watch that season back, get wildly lucky time and time and time again throughout the season. You need a quarterback that can make some plays for you. And I think Russ is a really good game manager at this point in his career. Uh, like Kirk Cousins ish tier, Jared Goff ish tier, where it's the upper end of average, above average. Maybe not top 10, not a difference maker maybe for you, but a guy that can make some good plays, not be the reason you're losing games, and maybe you'll even win a game or two because of them. But I don't know, like for as good as he was against the Browns, I don't know. I felt like he got exposed in this one. I don't think it's sheer coincidence that the first time the Broncos are put into a negative game script and they're put into a position where they have to lean on Russ, and they open the offense up and they actually ask Russ to throw downfield instead of just dumping it off behind the line of scrimmage into the running backs, that he has his 3 interception game when he had 4 interceptions all season up until this one. I don't think that's sheer coincidence. I think Sean Payton was hiding some stuff for a reason. And you saw it all. Again, there were a lot of positives from Russ in this game, but talking about stock up, stock down, his stock was very high going into this one. And I think we saw some of those limitations on clear display in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with you in terms of what you're saying on Russ, right? He had some nice moments, but I suppose the question, Zach, it's even less on this year. It's about kind of going forward, right? And as we sit here right now, I mean, you look at, say, the where the divisions, okay? And the top of the AFC East is the Dolphins and the Bills. And the Bills have issues on defense, huge issues, but they have Josh Allen, and the Dolphins have Tua and Tyreek. And way we could get into all day what kind of a person Tyreek Hill is, but as a player he's been, and they have a coach who's maximizing their talent. Obviously, you got Mahomes, you got Lamar Jackson, and you've got Trevor Lawrence. So every team on who's on top in the AFC has a very good quarterback. And you look at even in the NFC, you're talking about Jalen Hurts, you're talking about Dak, you're talking then. You get into the weeds a little bit. Where is Brock Purdy? But they have Kyle Shanahan, and they have the rest of those starters. I think the Jared Goff situation, the fact that they're in an easier division, but the Falcons are probably somebody who's a little bit comparable in some ways, right? Because they sit 6-6, but they're in the worst division in football, so they can get away with it a bit more, and they're in a lesser conference as well, so they get away with it a little bit more. I don't, can you continue to play like this? I heard a really interesting piece on the Athletic Football Podcast on their Saturday show, was that the GM show. And Mike Sando highlighted that in the game against the Vikings, it was 3rd and 10, and the Broncos, it was under 5 minutes, and the Broncos needed a touchdown, obviously, to win. And they ran the ball. And in 114 other attempts, nobody had run the ball. And what they were pointing out was Sean Payton was cutting his cloth. But it's the type of situation, I suppose, where you want to put it in, or you should be putting that in your QB's hands. But if you're not trusting your QB, what's it saying? But it's a difficult one, because has Russ taken a step forward from where he was last year? Absolutely. But that's akin to winning a taller than Danny DeVito contest. It's not that difficult. Has he probably taken it a step forward than where he began this season? Sure. So it leaves it in a quandary. But I think in terms of what you're saying, yeah, he's 186 yards today. He's 3 interceptions. Now could this all have been very different if Cortland Sutton gets that ball early? What was it? Was that the second play of the game, the drop? Like, when you get your hands on it like that, you've got to bring that in, and who knows, maybe we're talking about a very different game. But overall, he missed some reads. He missed Judy a number of times, and that was enormously frustrating.
Yeah, and that's, I think, another thing to mention, the viral clip. I'll lean on Robbie because he knows this stuff a lot better. Our very own Robbie Davis, who does the Russell Wilson film breakdowns, and frankly is, I think, more optimistic on Russell Wilson than most people. But he's also very fair in his analysis. And when there's literally 2 reads on this play, how do you miss Jerry Jeudy wide open? And that's a touchdown on a drive where they got a field goal. We talked about the Alex Singleton play costing him 4 points. That also costed him 4 points. And again, 4 points would have given him an opportunity, would have given him a second bite at the apple. The interception also took away what would have been a bite at the apple in terms of a chance at winning the football game. Yeah, it's just, and then the Mims one. Sorry, the Mims one. That's also beautifully designed up. That's a touchdown, and it gets underthrown. To everyone that thought I was overly critical about him getting bailed out when he underthrew Jerry Jeudy and they got the PI in that game. What I think that was the Buffalo game. That's why it's not super replicable. I don't know. You can't be banking on the refs to call that PI and bail you out, because that was defensive pass interference. Absolutely. But you're not going to get the call every time. I'd much rather throw an accurate ball to my wide open receiver in the end zone. I think that is a better recipe for success than hope I get a defensive pass interference call at the 10-yard line. I don't know. That's just me. I think he kind of hurt the team in this one. I loved what you highlighted there. I also want to bring up what Russ is doing on second and third downs. It's very concerning. First down, he's great when the defense is having to respect the run game and he's getting favorable looks. He's got an 82.6%. This is, I should say, weeks 9 through 11. The first 3 weeks of the win streak are 9 through 12, I think. I don't know. This is from an article written on November 20th, quoting since week 9. Steven Ruiz, credit him. 14.8 EPA created on first down, averaging 10 yards a drop back, averaging 0.64 EPA a drop back, and again, an 82.6% success rate. On second down, 25% success rate, minus 0.31 EPA per drop back. On third down, 36% success rate, minus 0.35 EPA per drop back. I don't think they converted a single third down today. 0 for 9. Third down's a money down. That's when you are looking to your quarterback. Hey, convert this one for us. In these, I don't know, big leverage spots, I think it was a little exposed that Russ is exactly what you said earlier. Big step from last year, but he is not that $250 million man.
0 for 11 on third down today, Zach. Makes it even
and not
worse.
A great pass defense, and not a great pass. I think they entered like 25th in EPA per dropback, defensive EPA per dropback. That was, oh my God, it was so close. They had it. I still think there's a chance that if he just throws the ball away on third down, they could have won it on fourth. All right, let's get positive. Do you have a stock up, Colum?
In terms of the start, given the lack of the third down conversion and the fact that we only scored 17, I can't go on the offense. But for me, I suppose, Zach, it's PJ Locke. Was it perfect? No. But was it another step to showing that he is and should be the starter on this defense, suspension or not? Like it should have been for obvious from the off. I know Kareem Jackson is something of a cult hero in Denver, but I think there's a time comes where he not on the active roster, and PJ Locke is a better player and should be starting at this point in his career. So I thought that he took, there were moments he came up really big at times. Again, perfect, no. But I think that when you look at it, like, would you have any concerns in it, with him at the, as a starter? I don't think you would in any of the game. I think he can do everything that you want him to do. And I think that's a huge asset to this, that you can lose an experienced player and you can bring PJ in, and it actually upgrades things. So I thought it was And I think that's a piece, Zach, that kind of is a larger piece. Like when you consider that the Broncos have looked better when they moved off of the older players, when Randy Gregory left, when Frank Clark left, when Kareem was no longer in the team. Like sometimes, the younger, hungrier players, it makes a real difference. And contract years make a real difference. There's a reason the Jaguars' Josh Allen looks like 2015 Von Miller this season. He is going to get paid, and Michael Pittman Jr. is going to get paid in Indianapolis. Contract years have something to do with it. So to me, yeah, stock up PJ Locke.
Yeah, I think it's the absolute right choice yet again, Colum. I would second it if it wouldn't impact the entertainment value of the show. I think PJ Locke was awesome today. He was second on the team in tackles, only to Alex Singleton. Tied for the team league in tackles for loss, which is crazy. I mean, he single-handedly blew up that drive with the tackle for loss and then the sack. Yeah, I continue to be so impressed by him. It would be so insulting if they don't start him over Kareem Jackson once Kareem returns. It's the old idea of a progress stopper, which Bill Parcells, Sean Payton's mentor, originated. So I would hope that he would listen to it because, yeah, you highlighted a bunch of other progress stoppers. I think Kareem Jackson's a bit of a progress stopper at this point, although he is, from all accounts, an incredible locker room leader and mentor and all those things. Guess what? Making PJ Locke the starter does not remove Kareem Jackson from the locker room. Fun fact there. So no concerns. Make him the starter. He absolutely deserves to be. Let me think. I think that's it, right? Oh, I need to give my down. Excuse me. Or my up.
Goodness. You're up. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm the Broncos played a borderline playoff game in my head is totally mush. I'm gonna go Sean Payton. I could see why some people might push back on it. They ultimately didn't get the job done today. But I am so impressed that this team continued to fight back. And I know I made him my stock down, but Russ deserves, I think, a tip of the cap for making some incredible plays that made that possible. But also just looking at the options here, I don't know who you go with. The run game was pretty unimpressive today. The receivers, I guess Judy finally kind of appeared again. Today, you could go with him. I think that'd be a fine answer, but Sutton had his drops, so it'd feel weird to go there. Then on defense, I mean, maybe Zach Allen, but I don't know how I'd make the argument for that. So I'm going Sean Payton. I can't believe this team continued to battle back. It seemed like the game was lost several times over. I was ready to emotionally detach myself when it was 16-3. I'm like, all right, they just don't have it today. This is not a real playoff team. And then they kept roping me in, and then I kept giving up, and they kept roping me back in. And I think it's a credit to Payton. I think the same way he kept this team believing when they were down 1-5, because Broncos fans, we've seen it over the last 8 years or so when a team doesn't believe in their head coach and kind of packs it in a little bit. Or doesn't believe in the season, I should say. And he has kept the buy-in incredibly high, despite all the adversity the Broncos have faced this season, despite all the adversity they faced this game. And I don't know. They had the Mims one. That's an offensive play design, creating a touchdown that the quarterback failed to capitalize on. Jerry Jeudy running wide open through the Texans secondary. That is a touchdown that the offensive play caller and offensive game designer created that the quarterback failed to capitalize on. Sean Payton's impact, I think, is already being felt, and I think it could be felt even more as the roster continues to get upgraded.
Yeah, no, I think there are definite upgrades needed, but I agree with you in terms of I think the response has been impressive. I mean, it is frustrating that had we started this season anyway better, things would be looking really rosy at this point. But I think, Zach, what we see over the next 2 games now is probably where he has to earn that big money, right? I have been impressed by the response, but the Broncos went on the road. They lose a tough game. They have moments where they play really well. They have really silly, stupid moments as well. Now they've got to go on the road again. Like, this is a 3-game stretch where they're on the road. They're on the road against the Chargers, and the Chargers, right over on this side of the Atlantic. And I know the Premier League has grown in popularity. There's a team called Tottenham Hotspurs, and Spurs are known for
My
all
team, my
your
team, let it be
your
known.
team. Well, unfortunately, they're like the Chargers. They find a way of we talk about teams it being so Spursy, right? Because you can bully Spurs, and ultimately, when things really matter, Spurs find a way to lose. And I think that we should be bullying the Chargers. I think they are a team who they have a very good QB, but I wasn't high on the Chargers going into. I get plenty wrong, but to me it was so obvious the Chargers weren't going to do anything this season because their wide receiver room is. Outside of Keenan Allen, it doesn't scare me. They don't have a tight end to speak to. Austin Eckler can't stay on the field. So I think they've done a really poor job of maximizing what they could have done with Justin Herbert. And it was funny, we discussed this on Twitter recently. The Chargers' problems aren't just this season or last season or 5 years or 10 years. They're 20 years. They're 30 years. This is decades long. And to me, when you go in that deep, it's institutional. This goes to the top. It's in the DNA. It's a real issue. Owners don't get a whole lot of focus a lot of the time. Heard a Colts beat writer on with Zach Kiefer during the week talking about how he had to make the decision on whether he would cover Jim Irsay's comments, because if he does, he's not going to get access to the team. And I'm sure there are plenty of Chargers beat writers in a similar sort of situation. And I think fans are sometimes not always aware of that, the influence and that owners can have by limiting access. So to me, I believe that we can and we should go into LA. I think the stadium SoFi should be a sea of orange, and I think we should, we need to get it back on track, and I believe we can, because then we've got a really tough game where we have to go to Detroit before the last 3 games. So I think Sean Payton has a job on his hand to pick this team up, but I do think he is capable of it, which is very different. I would not have been saying that about Vic Fangio. I would not have been saying that about Vance Joseph, the head coach. I'll do it on this platform. I've done it on the Dublin to Denver podcast, but I'll do it on this platform. Kudos to Vance Joseph. I threw a VJ's going away party when he was no longer the head coach. It was a great crack in Dublin. We had great fun, and this season started off terribly, but he has responded, and he's got that defense to respond. And even today, Zach, I thought they were really impressive in the adjustments they made, and the way in which to go from not getting to CJ Stroud at all in the first half to 5 sacks in the second half. I thought it was really impressive.
Agreed. Yeah, that pass rush is coming along nicely. I want to see Browning and Benito continue to grow together, but that's optimistic. And then to hit on what you were talking about with the coaching staff. Yeah, I think they have coaches that matter. I love the Greg Rosenthal theory. I don't know if theory is the right word for it, but idea that you've got like 10 or so coaches that matter in a positive way, 10 or so coaches that matter in a negative way, and 10 or so coaches that aren't really moving the needle in either direction for their teams. I think the Broncos have absolutely found one of the ones that is going to week in, week out, down in and down out, year in and year out, give them a better chance to win. And I don't know. You highlighted it. Like, things would be looking rosy right now if they didn't like lose that game earlier in the season to the Chargers in nail-biting fashion. I don't know. I'm feeling optimistic. Or like the Jets in another close loss. Like, if they just get one of those, it's looking incredibly rosy in terms of their playoff hopes. And this is the first year of the Sean Payton regime. He does not have his guys in here yet. I don't know. I'm feeling optimistic. Future's bright in Denver, even if the optimism for this season took a big hit. Colum, tell everyone where they can find you and your remarkable work covering the whole league and the Broncos as well. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I was thrilled to have you on.
Well, thanks for the invite, and glad we were able to make it work. It can be difficult sometimes with the time difference. One final thing just before I shout out, and thanks to everyone watching. It's great to see the comments come in. Just want to wish Tank Dell a speedy recovery. Really great young receiver for the Texans. Obviously picked up a really bad injury today, fractured fibula, which is really sad for him. You hate seeing players get injured, and particularly really exciting young players. And I thought he was having a magnificent season. So he may have been an opponent today, but really wish him the best. In terms of where people can find me, I am across social media at Colum From Cork, Colum from Cork, and Cork people like to tell people how great Cork is. You can find me on the Dublin To Denver podcast, myself and Stuart Roach, and also on the Irish NFL show, where we cover the entirety of the league. So if you like listening to people who don't pronounce the H and TH words talk about the great sport of football and the NFL, come on over. We have podcasts that go out pretty much every day, and we cover a variety of different topics. So if you are, obviously, Zach, you and the team, Let's Talk Broncos, do a phenomenal job covering the Broncos. But if there are people looking for maybe a wider view of the league, particularly as we move in towards the playoffs, definitely check us out over on the Irish NFL show.
Absolutely. And people should do that. I think the best resource, at least for me, as I try and follow the NFL and get different perspectives, listen to national podcasts. The people in Denver, I think there's a lot of people in Denver that do great work, but it's like we get stuck in a little Broncos bubble, and we don't know what's going on with other 31 teams. We don't know how to maybe compare what's going on here elsewhere, and we don't have the time to. But there are people like Colum who do have the time to. So make sure you're utilizing that resource. Thank you again, Colum. Always great to see you and talk with you. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be back with another show on Monday. Until then, everyone, go Broncos and keep the playoff hopes alive. It's not dead yet.